CTV News at 5 with Hudson Mack.
Premier Christy Clark was in Calgary today for a meeting with Alberta Premier Alison Redford on the Northern Gateway pipeline. Didn't go quite so well. Clark describes the meeting as frosty and short. Clark told Redford that the pipeline proposal as it stands now will not be passed unless BC's concerns over the environment are addressed. Her original concern, as you'll recall, was revenue, and today she called for a greater share of the pipeline revenue for BC, but Alberta flatly rejects that.
The point for me was to extend a hand and make sure that Albertans, including the Premier, understand what's at stake here in British Columbia. And primarily that is to make sure people understand that this is, that our first 3 conditions out of the 5 are about the environment. And there is no price that can be put on protecting our environment in British Columbia. There is none.
I'm an Albertan, and when you talk about sharing Alberta's royalties with other jurisdictions, things tend to get a little bit frosty.
Clark says BC has 5 conditions. The first 3 involve the environment, the 4th relates to legal rights for First Nations, and the 5th is the revenue question. Redford says she's okay with the first 4, but Alberta is not willing to budge over the cash. Well, while the Premier was in Calgary, BC's opposition leader was meeting with reporters outside a quiet BC legislature today, which he says should be sitting right now. It was a quiet day around the Parliament buildings on what would have been the first scheduled day of the fall sitting. NDP leader Adrian Dix says Clark's decision to abandon the legislature this fall to tour the province instead will have serious repercussions.
If we had had a question period today, clearly we'd be asking the government questions on their varying and moving positions with respect to fiscal issues. Weeks ago when the quarterly was tabled, claiming that there would be a reduction in capital budgets, a required reduction in capital budgets, and now announcing a flurry of new spending in a UBCM speech, much of it unbudgeted and unconsidered. We have fiscal issues, we have social issues, we have environmental issues, and the government has decided again, for its own political interests, to avoid accountability.
Dix says rather than not sitting this fall, the Premier could have and should have simply reduced the number of sitting days. Well, British Columbia has a new Lieutenant Governor. She is a 65-year-old rancher from the Southern Interior. Yes. Prime Minister Stephen Harper made the announcement today, the appointment of Judy Guichon as the Queen's new representative in BC. Guichon is the former president of the BC Cattlemen's Association. She says her priority during her upcoming 5-year term will be to visit as many of BC's smaller communities as she can. Premier Christy Clark took the time today to thank retiring Lieutenant Governor Stephen Point for his service during his 5-year term, saying the province owes him a debt of gratitude. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency is warning you not to eat more than 100 beef products from the XL Foods plant in Brooks, Alberta. And the list of items under recall now includes beef that was sold at Thrifty Food stores on Vancouver Island. Thrifty's says it does not usually buy beef from the XL plant in Alberta, but a small amount was purchased during the period in question. Thrifty Foods says the affected beef products have been pulled from store shelves in Duncan, as well as the outlets at Tuscany Village, Hillside, Admiral's Walk, Central Saanich, Quadra Cloverdale in Greater Victoria, and the Salt Spring Island location.
The first recall, we looked at all of the items involved. We did not purchase that. We knew it, and we could tell we could be emphatic about the fact we had no part in that recall. As soon as it was expanded to whole cuts, we did the same investigation, and sure enough, we did find we were involved at 12 of our stores on a limited basis. But nonetheless, it was there, and it's really important that we're transparent, and that's what it's all about. We all have families, and we want to feed people with good, healthy food.
The sterling silver beef products sold in Thrifty Food stores are not affected by the recall. There have been 4 cases of E. coli illness in Canada associated with the consumption of beef products from the XL plant. It produces 1/3 of all Canadian beef. The CFIA has since suspended its license. For the full list of items on the beef recall list, go to ctv.ca and follow the links. Now, the Salvation Army is asking for your help tonight so it can continue to give back to the community. The Sally Ann is about $30,000 shy of its goal of $100,000 to purchase a much-needed new Beacon bus. The current bus has served the community as an emergency response vehicle for the past 15 years. But it's beginning to show its age and it needs to be replaced. The Sally Ann says the new bus will help operations run even smoother.
A new vehicle will enable us to operate the program at a more cost-effective way because it will be easier on fuel, less maintenance will be required. So it's just time in the life of the Beacon bus to replace it.
The Salvation Army's goal is to have a new Beacon bus on the road by Christmas. If you'd like to help them do that and would like to donate, you can do so by calling 250-386-3366. The Canadian crew members of a fishboat that collided with a U.S. vessel Friday are safe in Vancouver tonight, but one of the men who was on the American boat is missing and presumed drowned. It happened about 50 kilometers off the Washington coast in dense fog Friday. The Canadian Coast Guard says the Canadian boat, the 31-meter Viking Storm from Vancouver, hit the U.S. boat, the 12-meter Maverick, in what investigators there call a serious marine incident. The Maverick sank quickly. 3 of the 4 crew members were rescued. The fourth, a 32-year-old man, Kelly Dickerson, is presumed drowned. His father was the captain of the Maverick. He's from Port Angeles. The Viking Storm is now docked in Ucluelet, but the Vancouver-based crew has already gone back to the mainland. The Transportation Safety Board is working with the U.S. Coast Guard to interview the survivors to figure out what caused the fatal collision. They think it was fog-related. The Nanaimo River rapids are surging this week, and the city has a warning for you to use extra precaution if you are on or near the water. The river water levels are on the rise as the city releases more water from 2 reservoirs to help fish swim to Nanaimo lakes to spawn. The river flow has been below average after a hot, dry summer and fall with weeks without rain. The city says salmon have been patiently waiting to come and release their eggs.
And at this time of year, there's often a lot of fish waiting to come up to spawn, so we release an extra burst of water or a pulse release to allow those fish to move into the river. In the course of the next couple of days, Nanaimo Forest Products will be releasing an additional 6 cubic meters a second over and above their normal release, and the city will be in that same neighborhood. We'll be increasing our release from 1 cubic meter per second to 6 or 7 cubic meters a second.
They released water from the Harmac Pacific 4th Lake Reservoir today. They'll release more Wednesday from Nanaimo's Jump Lake Reservoir. That increased flow is expected to last for the week. If you're near the water, you are urged to use caution. And the Coastal Fire Center warns tonight that the season is still on and it's still hot as tinder dry conditions fuel at least 4 active fires burning on Vancouver Island. Fire crews are battling 2 fires in Duncan, one of which was sparked last week by somebody using shotgun pellets. Firefighters are also trying to douse flames near Cook Creek, just west of Campbell River. And there's another fire burning north of Jordan River. The BC Coastal Fire Center says the hot, dry conditions are causing some deep-rooted problems.
As the fires are burning so deeply underground now, we get somebody go back and do a patrol around again. They're checking for hot spots. They're looking for visible smoke. We were hoping for some rain out of this event that's coming through, but it's coming from the north part of Vancouver Island and moving south. And we're finding that once it gets past Campbell River, it doesn't look like it's going to dump any appreciable rain. So we're not going to get relief from that. Along with the front coming along is of course wind as well. So the windier it gets, the more active the fires get, so that's always a concern for us. The other problem, of course, is that it's further drying the ground.
And it is windy on the island tonight. The Coastal Fire Center says it expects the winds will blow significantly overnight. Crews will do everything they can to keep the flames from spreading. A 66-year-old woman is in the hospital after a dramatic crash in Campbell River. It happened just after noon at the intersection of Dogwood Street and 7th Avenue. Mounties say the woman was making a left turn when another vehicle hit her car, sending it spinning through the intersection, coming to a stop when it hit a taxi. After hitting her car, the other vehicle then went through a fence and stopped in a school field. Fortunately, the children at that school were inside at the time. A Port Alberni man who committed himself to a strong political career and had a reputation as a passionate advocate has died suddenly. Glenn Wong collapsed at the Union of BC Municipalities Convention in Victoria on Friday. Wong was the chair of the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District and a Board of Education trustee. Wong is survived by his 2 daughters, his partner, and her 2 children. A service for Glenn Wong is planned for later this week. A Nanaimo newspaper reporter has died suddenly. Walter Cordery was 54 years old. Cordery was well known and admired in the city. He'd been writing for the Nanaimo Daily News since 1989. He died at his home over the weekend. Cause of death has not been determined. He leaves 2 daughters.